Then I was beside him like a master workman. That's right, we're talking about Proverbs chapter 8, and speaking about wisdom here, wisdom says that she was beside him like a master workman. Very interesting indeed what we're looking at today. And so let's talk about this idea that wisdom made the world. So wisdom was the master workman, or the architect, as it's used in other places, of creation. So was wisdom created, or was wisdom the master workman of creation? There you go. So all that was made by wisdom. See, that's where you have to begin to change this text. You have to kind of separate it from, they don't want to see, a lot of people don't want to see Jesus in this, because then it shows that Jesus is eternal. Jesus has to be God. Because if you don't identify him with wisdom, or that, God created without wisdom, or God existed before him, he wasn't wise beforehand, but then he had to make wisdom. Like, see, as an abstract thing, that doesn't make any sense, because wisdom really is an abstract idea. It's possessing knowledge and understanding and being able to use it in a right manner. That's what wisdom is. And so, did God not have wisdom? Did he not have understanding? Did he not have perfect knowledge before he created everything? It doesn't make any sense. So obviously, he has to have wisdom. He has to always have wisdom. We say that God created wisdom. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, people that try to make it the Lord created me at the beginning of his work. Well, did he create? He didn't have wisdom beforehand? No, God is all wise. He has always been wise. He is eternally wise. So we can't begin to separate that and, begin like, well, God made wisdom first and then he created the world. That doesn't make any sense. And so, like, people will see, obviously people that see Jesus as wisdom, which is what I think the Bible and what Jesus himself took upon himself, said, I am wisdom. Wisdom is justified by her works, and he's talking about himself. And so I think this idea here that he identifies himself with the wisdom of the Old Testament, saying now, and Paul says that he has become our wisdom. He now is the embodiment of all that was wise, that was given to us as wisdom. But here we see that wisdom was the master workman, or the architect of creation. And all that was made by wisdom itself. And so we see, like, wait a minute, but that's Jesus. Again, John 1:3, all things were made through him. And without him was not anything made that was made. So anything that was made through him. See, this is the problem too with when you think about, like, was Jesus created? It says that all things were made through him. But then you have to put in there, like, asterisk, except for himself, because he wasn't. But that you're doing really an injustice to this, and then the description of wisdom, who Jesus is, in the Old Testament. But here you have all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Hebrews 1:2, but in these last days is spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. So anything that is made was made by Jesus. Anything that's been created was created by Jesus. Everything that was made by the master workman, wisdom. Wisdom made it. Wisdom was there. Wisdom created everything. It was beside him like a master workman. That is a great picture of how you have the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit all engaged in the creation of the world. Jesus was there as the master workman, the master architect of the world that was created. You see, and God spoke, and what does that all entail? What was Jesus doing? Jesus created all things. The Lord spoke, Jesus created. Very interesting to think about, how all that came. What is the idea of speaking? We think of audible words coming out of our mouths, but for God, who has no mouth, before air existed, how do you speak without air? We don't know what that means. We get the idea of when he speaks, he commands, it happens, because that relates to us as humans. When we speak and command someone to do it, we expect that to happen. And so it's kind of using words that we understand, pictures that we understand, to explain this infinite God who can speak, and then things happen. But we see that Jesus was doing, he was working, he was the master architect, and just like wisdom was. So wisdom did that, Jesus did that. So here again, we see that parallel idea here, that you can see Jesus and his qualities in wisdom. So that's our study for today. Come back next time. We're going to take a look at another one, which is this idea of reciprocal delight. Reciprocal delight. So come back for that time.